Reformative and restorative justice. What is justice? What are the types of justice? Especially in the context where there are reforms happening in criminal justice system, and at the same juncture where we are evolving technologically. Let us dwell and try to learn comprehensively about justice system. So there is an article in today's newspaper which is talking about open jails. This is the topic which triggered us to make this comprehensive video, giving you explanation from ancient times to the present times, different dimensions and perspectives of justice. I'll dwell into the article later. I'll try to dwell into the basics first. As I was talking about justice, there are different types of justice and there are different organs involved in it. First one, if we talk about distributive justice, the organ which is involved is normally policymakers, welfare agencies, NGOs, etc. So if we talk about procedural justice, more into judicial system. Similarly, when we talk about retributive justice, we speak about judiciary or law enforcement authority. When we talk about judiciary, we are talking about three basic organs. One is judiciary itself, the other one is police, the other one is jails. So criminal justice system is normally maintained by these three important institutions, which we need to keep in mind. So social justice is another important term which normally NGOs, social activists and other government bodies will use this word. And similarly, there are words like environmental justice and economic justice. So where we are dwelling is criminal justice system, where we are talking about penal theories. What are the theories of different theories of punishment, or what are the different theories of justice? This is where I can comprehensively put the evolution of justice into retributory justice and restorative justice and rehabilitative justice, reformative justice. So these are the words which we use. These are the mnemonics which we use specifically in the mains examination for this purpose, right? So if we dwell into that arena, as I said, we have a criminal justice system which is normally administered by judiciary, jails and police. These are the important organs from accusation to conviction, from filing a case to conviction or acquittal, right? So if you take in India, we have different types of jails, and what are the purpose of these jails? So in this article, in this particular video, we'll dwell in to NCRB data, we'll dwell into modern criminal justice laws which we got into, right? And similarly, we'll try to understand what is open jail. Open jail, by discussing open jail, we can more explicitly learn about uh, reformative and rehabilitative justice specifically. So in India, if you see, we have sub jails, which are smaller prisons at we can call block level or mandal level, which are mostly having under trial prisoners. So then we have district jails, which are mid-level jails, and central jails. Central jails are normally largest jails. The difference between these three, mostly in terms of infrastructure and the penalty, right? The penalty or the punishment, the size of punishment they were given. Okay. So if we say sub jails, most of them are under trials, and central jails, as I said, these are the people who are having a longer sentence, more than 2 years. Apart from that, we also have the system of open jails. What are these open jails? Open jails are places where there is minimum security, allowing the inmates to work and live with families. This is not something new. We are not discussing something new here. This is there in international framework and also Indian legal framework from past 60 70 years. But the exposure to this is very less to the aspirants. That is the reason why we have brought this topic. Apart from that, we have special jails for those who are for those offenders who are having high security risk, right? And women jails, which you know, and we also know borstal schools, which you must have seen in most of the Tollywood and Bollywood movies, where the young child who is a primary offender becoming a underworld don, something like that, right? So these are the different types of jails. So according to 2021 data, these are the number of jails we have in India. I don't want you to focus on jails, number of jails. I want you to focus on what is open jail concept. Have you ever thought about a jail where uh, you can live with all the required infrastructure? Sometimes you can take your family and live there, work, come back, stay. Do you know there are jails where the inmates self govern their jails, right? They themselves take their roll calls. They themselves will, go out in the right time and come back in the right time, right? So you need to understand this system. Why we are specifically, stressing on this point is to understand the topic. We'll try to understand. We'll come back to that as I said. So I've explained you the number of jails we have, like sub jails, district jails, central jails. So I want you to identify the difference of open jail when compared to other jails. See, so these are open colonies. Sometimes you don't need a completely boundaried wall jail. It can be a open penal colony, right? Like we have colonies, you may call it as bankers colony, teachers colony. Likewise, we can have penal colonies, right, where they administer themselves and govern themselves, right? So normally in rural outskirts, encouraging people to take up professions like agriculture, right? And where there is minimal supervision, these are low risk inmates. There is a quite good integration of work and family, and there is rehabilitation. So one thing you need to remember here is prisons is an item in states list. So that is the reason why we don't have uniformity in all the states when we talk about criminal justice administration, specifically jails administration, because that is a state subject, right? But we do have this system. We have adopted these open jails long back, right? So coming back to the justice system. So jail is not an institution which gives punishment. No. Jail is an institution which reforms, rehabilitates a person, and reintegrates that offender into the society. That is the purpose of modern jail, right? So let us consider in the evolution of justice system how it evolved. If we go back to Hammurabi code, which is basic important code through which the ancient Babylonian era was administered, if you see that, that is retributive justice. What they have followed is retributive justice. Retributive justice is as simple as this: an eye for an eye, right? So if X killed Y, then Y should be killed by the state, something like that, right? A person murdered and a death penalty should be the punishment, right? So you need to understand that retributive justice is what they have followed in ancient Babylonia, which is an eye for eye. So coming to Greek and Roman systems, which are very famous, so they followed a natural justice and a due process, which you people use now in Article 21, right? You have different cases around it, and natural justice is also very important for the procedural justice in India right now. And Islamic justice, which is Sharia. Normally, it is a balance of both retributive and restorative, qisas and diyas. So these are the different kinds of justice systems we have in the ancient. I'm just taking the comprehensive perspective. I'm not going into the microscopic level. And when you talk about modern Indian traditions, what is the kind of theories we followed in justice or punishment? If you see, Manusmriti focused more on moral correction and dharma, right? When we talk about dharmic way of life, so Manusmriti, it followed in Indian tradition more of that moral code and moral correction. So mostly it is a deterrent theory, right? So Kautilya Arthashastra also speaks about crime prevention and reform. So it majorly focuses on crime prevention. So prevention and reform. And Mughal era, as I said, it is a community arbitration and Sharia law. We saw the Sharia law, which is a balance between both retributive and restorative. It is standing like a bridge between both ancient and modern times, as I said. And it has that intensity. For those intense crimes, it has to be retributive, and for those crimes which can be corrected, they always used to follow restorative. So we are not getting into what crime and what punishment exactly. And modern global influence, what we have is British colonial laws, and right now our context where we got modern criminal justice laws in India. So this is just an evolution where you can see from ancient time to now, people focused on retributive justice, reformative justice, restorative justice, and rehabilitative justice. So the agenda before is to punish people, right, in the ancient time. Right now, the focus is not punishing, the focus is on reintegrating that person into the society. Although our statistical measures will not calculate that even now, if you see the major flaw of NCRB data, if I have to criticize it, if you see there, you will not find re-offense rate of a criminal, re-offense rate of a offender, right? So when a person did an offense, came to jail, and went back to the society and doing the same offense again, which means the jails are failed. That we need to keep in mind, right? So those parameters have to come to understand modern theories of justice or punishment. So as I said, the focus is more on reformation and bringing the person back to the system, the societal system, right? So if you see the reformative justice, the agenda is to rehabilitate offenders through education, skill building, and psychological counseling. So we should consider them as a socially sick person, those people who don't understand the law, cannot abide by the law. So there is a concept called rule of law. People who have to live in the society have to live by the order of that law, right? So goal, transform offenders into law abiding citizens. So this is the agenda. So this is the objective. This objective orientation should be there throughout the systems, and all the stakeholders of the system also should keep in this in the mind. It can be police officers, it can be judiciary, it can be jails. The objective of them is to bring that socially sick person back to society as a citizen abiding the law. So that is one such article today we have seen in the newspaper, where there are open prisons uh, like what we have in Sanganer, and we also have one in Andhra Pradesh, Rajahmundry. We also have it in Anantapur. So there are open jails, there are family prisons, colloquial language if I have to tell about. So when we talk about reformative, that is what we are talking about, changing, bringing that person back to the society, bringing that person back to the societal standards. Maybe that person is living with animal instincts of ancient time, maybe of medieval times, but bringing back him to the present law standards is the agenda of this particular jail or system. When you talk about restorative justice is restoration, simple. The word is simple, not the work. Repairing harm through victim offender reconciliation and compensation. So, compensatory justice. There are crimes where through compensation justice can be arrived at, right? So minor crimes we're talking about, we're not talking about heinous crimes like rape, murder, kidnap. These cannot be reconciled, right? So heal the victims. So what is this? This victim and offender, when they come in, they come in space and time together, and when one particular offense happen, when this can be compensated and when this can be restored, we use this theory and try to heal the victim and rebuild the trust in the victim about the system, right? So examples, if I have to talk about reformative justice, is local lok adalat and mediation is one such procedure through which this can be arrived at, right? So in the present context, there is introduction of new criminal laws, right? We have a shift from colonial laws to modern frameworks. This is not just the change of letter from colonial laws to the present. It is a change of spirit from colonial mindset, colonial hangover to modern evolved society. Okay. We have Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita BNS, which came in 2023, which replaced age-old IPC 1860. You can see that the focus of this is also proportional punishment and decriminalization and rehabilitation. Right? If you say Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita BNSS, which is replacing criminal procedural code, so you don't have to go by the the nomenclature, you don't have to get confused by the nomenclature. You can see that the intent of these laws is expressed in the nomenclature. So this is saying criminal procedural code, but this is saying Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita. So it itself, the name itself, the nomenclature itself is trying to explicitly present the spirit of this law, the ideology behind bringing these amendments. The agenda is speedier trials. We have seen that sub jails, there are many under trial prisoners. Most of the prisoners, our occupancy rate is 130% in India. So 130% is the occupancy rate in India. We see that there are trials which are happening for years together. So, and community policing, simplified procedures. These are the things which we have integrated into BNSS. So, Bharatiya Saksha Adhiniyam BSC 2023 replacing Indian Evidence Act 1872. So, this is focusing on the technological evolution part, specifically digital evidence and victim centric reforms. So, we need to understand that we are sitting in that particular arena where we are in a transition zone from X to Y, from colonial laws to modern evolved society. And the pace of technological change is also so high that it is important the law also should adopt those changes, right? So similarly, if you see the major features of Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, as I said, proportional punishment for crimes, addressing both severity and societal impact. So the theory of punishment, the derivative punishment, is based on the severity and social impact. And there is also decriminalization of some offenses like adultery, like begging, rehabilitation oriented sentencing. This is what I am looking at, this is what I am focusing on, this is the sensitivity which we should arrive at. So the punishment is to change the person, is not as a revenge, as a solution, as a revenge for the offense, right? So it is important to change that person, who is behind the bars should work on himself, understand the society, understand how to live in the society without interfering into the rights of others. without becoming criminal in the society. That is the major agenda why we are putting him behind the bars, right? So as I said, the sentencing based on probation. Open jails also, if you take some example, there are some crimes where we put him in probation. If he is behaving well, if he is doing good, we'll put him in open jail where he can live with his family. He can go do daily work. Maybe he can do agriculture. He can come back, take the produce to the market, sell the produce in the market, come back with money, live with family again. We are talking about prisons, although we are not implementing that infrastructure right now. Right now it is least priority for the government, might be, but if you see all those Nordic nations, they are the best human prisons in the world. People always call them as luxury prisons of the world, right? So what we are looking at here is those progressive prisons. We are looking for those prisons which looks like colleges, right, which creates people who contributes back to the society positively, right? So who can skill up themselves, who can educate themselves, who can understand laws and become law abiding citizens. That is kind of jails we are looking at. As I said, we are looking at progressive, right, modern evolved jails, right? So as I said, if you talk about Arthashastra is more tactical, right? They rather enforcing, very strict punishments, rather retributive. They always focus on penalties, right? They focus on fines more, right? So this BNSS also simplified arrest and bail processes to prevent unnecessary detentions. So recently you have seen the arrests of film heroes, but right now we are not focusing on that controversy. But we are at a juncture where we are trying to simplify procedures, right? We are trying to give them more rights than rules, promote speedier trials through digital case management, right? Speedier trials. So right now I see, after e-courts and digital reforms, even Supreme Court accepted, High Courts accepted. There are Telegram groups for Supreme Court. There are video YouTube channels for Supreme Court. There is High Court of Gujarat, which is maintaining its own Telegram group. Similarly, Karnataka. So they're all present in social media. They are streaming live also. They are listening to the cases live. So what I see through this is improved transparency, a greater understanding of law and judiciary to the people, right? So this is exactly what digital case management is also about. Sitting in Hyderabad, a particular lawyer can argue a case in Supreme Court of India. Similarly, he can attend cases in different courts. So this is made possible. So virtual attending of cases is important, right? So right, we're talking about student ID, digital IDs for health, similarly digital IDs for criminals, digital IDs for cases, right? So that e-governance part into judiciary, okay? And this also encourages community policing, crime prevention and resolution. As we're talking about justice in the background of modern laws and modern reformatory and rehabilitative, justice systems, where we start that initiation from Hague Convention. Okay. So if you see the key features of BSA, it recognizes digital evidence, like we're talking about emails, you're talking about CCTV footage, right? Strengthens victims' testimony to avoid re-victimization, which we saw till now. This is the perspective difference we need to identify, understand between those colonial laws and the present. Modernizes admissibility standards with quicker trials. So we are more inspired by the Western evidence systems, and we are trying to be more forward in administrating justice. right? So those are the laws which are talking about, which are giving you the spirit required to administer criminal justice system, the way you prevent an individual to commit crime, the way you deter a person, the way you reform a person after committing a crime. These are the legal background, these are the infrastructure we have, this is the ecosystem we have right now. So maybe people consider that there is no major shift, but the shift is not just in letters, the shift is in spirit, right? So if you see NCRB data, normally when we're talking about criminal justice system, NCRB data is one data which we take regularly. So prison waiver crowding, if you see in India, the occupancy rate is 130%, and the solution is to expand open prisons and reduce under trial, incarcerations, right? So if you remove most of these under trial prisoners from the jails, the occupancy will come down to 40%, right? Speeding up the trials is the burden of judiciary. That is one thing. And we can encourage open prisons, right? So it requires very less infrastructure. As I said, if you go to Nordic countries, they have very good infrastructure of jails and no weapon jails. There are guards, but there are no weapons, and mostly women centric also. They trigger employment for women also, because we're talking about reformative. Jails should be skill labs, right? So these are the places where we're talking about college. The infrastructure should be more like a college. Then this will encourage people, to take up some skill and modernize themselves and materialize themselves to move forward in the present times. And similarly, we see juvenile crimes. These are another important parameter. 31,000 cases, emphasizing restrictive reforms. So these are the people of India. This is the India we are building for these people, right? So today's young generation are the real owners of the resources, right? For them we are building this country. For the upcoming generation we are building this country, this law framework, right? So all this sustainability, SDG goals, everything is for future generation. When this is the case, 31,000 cases, right? This triggers, instigates us to more towards restorative reforms, right? Victim compensation, underutilized provisions under section 357A of erstwhile CRPA, right? Compensatory justice, which I talk about for minor cases. There is a theory called compensatory justice where we can, satisfy the victim with the compensation, unlike the heinous crimes, as I said. So this is what I have said before in the introduction. Ancient law, what is the focus, and Babylonian law, what was the focus? It is dharma based justice, it is retributive justice. Babylonian, Islamic, it is more focus is on punishment and reconciliation. I told you it is a bridge between both. It is focusing both on retributive and restorative. For the heinous crimes they were going for retributive, and for other type of crimes they were going for restorative. And modern, we have codified systems and due processes where we more focus on reformation, rehabilitation. So in the same background, we also should see Model Prisons and Correctional Services Act 2023. We're not even just focusing on model schools. Model jails also very important. Model prisons are also very important, right? This replaces colonial era Prisons Act 1894, aims to modernize prison management and promote reformative justice. This law is clearly focusing on reformative justice. The shift is from punishment to rehabilitation. We are not considering that person as a person, you know, who should receive punishment. It is not going to be just retributive. The focus is not giving the punishment. The objective is in reformation. The kind of punishment required to be given to that individual to arrive at that reformation, that punishment we should give. Just mere giving the punishment is not the objective of the state, objective of the law, or nor the spirit of the law, or nor the spirit of the judiciary. Ensure prisoners' rights and reintegration into the society. Even though he is an offender also have rights, right? We should ensure that these rights are given to him, right? And reintegration into the society is where we need to focus on. How do you come back from the jail? How do you make him to participate in any other re-offense? You should start him, you should deter him, you should prevent him doing further offense post his jail term, or post his probation term, or post his parole term, right? Address issues like prison overcrowding, promote humane treatment. As I said, most of the Nordic jails, not even in America, Canada, or Mexico, Nordic jails, Finland, Netherlands, they are focusing on most humane prisons. These are most progressive prisons. Sometimes people feel that they were given so luxury, but the reality is that we are giving them schools to skillify them. This is a shift in ideology, shift in perspective completely. The way you treat criminal, right? As I said, you just have to consider him as a socially sick person and bring him back to the society as a normal, law-abiding citizen. So as I said, rehabilitation should be the focus, and this also understood the importance of the technology like video conferencing trials, virtual trials, right? As I said, virtual arguments, grievance redressal systems. Special focus is on women, juvenile, or any other vulnerable groups. As we saw, we have women jails also, we have juvenile jails also. So the focus is already there in place. In letter, we have institutions. We only have to embody the spirit into that system. So the key takeaways of this video is that we have learnt about reformative justice and restorative justice and the importance of this in the present context. To understand the importance of this, we have used NCRB data to understand the status of jails and the types of jails and the number of jails. And we understand the spirit of modern criminal justice system and laws which we have created recently. And we have understood and used Model Prisons Act. So the shift from the colonial legacy to the modern systems is in this background. So we need to focus more on humane prisons, progressive prisons, and college like educational institution like prisons, which will rehabilitate, change, reform, and reintegrate those offenders into the society back. So these are the key takeaways of this video. Thank you very much. Have a very good day.